Well, most of you know it's a site which collects England and Wales civil registration indexes. It's an important alternative site for searching births and deaths, an alternative to the GRO, the official site. But the significance of FreeBMD for most of us is that it's the only free source for marriages. So it's an easy URL to use, freebmd.org.uk. And once again, I'll have that on the website for you. Not to be confused with UK BMD, which is another free collection. It does a slightly different job. It would be a much longer talk if we tried to cover both of them. So today I'm just going to limit it to FreeBMD. And in we go. It's an intriguing start page. There seems to be a lot of stuff on it, but the important thing is what's not on it. There's no sign up. There's no login. No password. No credit card required. You just hit search. It's probably the easiest site that you'll use. In we go. And the search page is even more cluttered than the front page, but it's quite easy to sort out. We can divide it up into 4 zones. In the top left corner, what type of event are you looking for? Birth, marriage, or death. In the top right, where did the event happen? Across the middle of the left, when did it take place? And in the centre there, who was the person? Once you've worked out those 4 questions that you are interested in, you simply jump down and hit search, and you'll see a page like this. One of the features that I really love about this is that FreeBMD tells you exactly what you put in on the same page as it gives you the results, which is made especially for people like me, who when they see an unexpected result immediately react, "Stupid computer, that's not what I asked for." And in fact the computer's saying, "This is exactly what you asked for, mate. It's your fault, not mine." So a member of the family had come across an old letter, had been sent from England to Australia, Christmas 1838. And in the letter it said, "You'll never believe it, Euphemia got married." You wouldn't think that that would be sufficient information, but what I searched for there was a marriage of someone called Euphemia before Christmas of 1838, because that was when the letter was written, in the district of Newcastle upon Tyne, because that's where the family came from, and with a start date of September 1837, because if it was before that it wouldn't be in the list anyway. That was the beginning of civil registration. And FreeBMD popped up a result for me. Now we'll come back and look at what the results look like in a little more detail later. For the moment, let's go back in and examine in detail how we can frame a query. So up at the top we should see there, new query. There it goes, flashing away. We'll click it and back we go. Back to the first spot where we're going to put in the what of our search. What are we searching for? Few simple rules we've got to follow. There are 4 things at the top there, all births, deaths and marriages. You must select at least one. There is no default setting. It doesn't matter what else you choose on the page. If you don't pick one of those, FreeBMD says you must select a type. So no getting away from that. But interestingly, you can choose 2, 3 or 4. I'm not quite sure why you would choose all 4, because all covers the other 3. But they're not radio buttons, like on an old car radio where you press one button in, all the others popped out. You can have multiple selections there. Do take care if you don't regularly use all. One of the biggest bugbears that I find is I'll be searching for a marriage and it starts giving me some deaths. And when I look back at the top, I've got all and marriages ticked. So take care, if you don't want all, that it's unticked. And the easy way to untick them all is at a button called Reset. Where is it? Right down here at the bottom. Reset. Clears everything out. So that's our what. Let's move on to where. The interesting contrast. What says you must choose something. Where says we don't care if you don't choose anything. We'll search everywhere. All districts and all counties if you do nothing. And typically that's how I use it. I simply leave it to search anywhere it wants to go. But you can limit it to one or more counties. If you want more than one, you hold down Control and click multiple times, and you can do the same for districts. And here you see I've chosen 2 districts. The red text appears saying multiple districts selected, and the ones that I've chosen are highlighted. Just be careful and don't go crazy choosing districts and counties, because you can get a conflict. If I had chosen Aberystwyth there and I went down and clicked on Bedfordshire, I would get no results, because I'd be saying I want marriages that occurred in the district of Aberystwyth and the county of Bedfordshire, and Aberystwyth ain't in the county of Bedfordshire. So think carefully about doing that, but it can be very powerful, and we'll demonstrate how a little later. So we've specified the what and the where. Let's come back to the when. This one is pretty easy to get into strife with. The first thing is that it uses quarters of the year, ending in March, June, September and December. So when I put in that I want to search March 1890, it's not the month of March, it's January, February, March of 1890. It always searches between the choices you've made, so don't leave blanks. For example, I might be interested in searching March of 1887. I don't want any other quarter, just that first quarter of 1887. And I hit find, and after an extended period of time, FreeBMD comes back and says, I'm sorry, your search is taking too long. Well, how can it possibly take too long? Because FreeBMD has said he's left it blank. He must mean from March of 1887 until today, which is not what I wanted. If you do want a particular quarter, put the same date in both sides, and it will search between them. Remember, of course, there's no point searching before September quarter of 1837, because civil registration didn't start until the 1st of July 1837, so that September quarter, July, August, September 1837, was the first time you could search. You can search beyond 1980, but the chances are you won't find what you're looking for because the records are incomplete. FreeBMD is a volunteer organisation, people sitting at home transcribing and indexing records, and they simply haven't finished after 1980. There is a chart on the website that will show you how much is done, but there are some periods where there's only 10% done for a year, and you really don't know whether it's 10% of the districts or 10% of the days. So beyond about December of 1980, be careful. So we've done what, we've done where, we've done when, who. Couple of simple rules. Use as little information as is practicable to begin. First thing, you notice it says surname, first names, plural. So there's an awful temptation to put Robert Joseph, 2 first names or 2 given names. and you get a message which says, warning, you are apparently searching for more than one first name in at least some quarters when there was only one. So the temptation is there, but it's safest to search for just one. If you do get a lot of results and you see that some of them have a second name, then you might go back. Notice it also says mother's surname. Oh, great, just like the GRO. No, we found no matches, but there would in any case be no results because mother's name is given. On any birth before 1911, FreeBMD has no mother's surname, so don't use it. Date of birth, that'd be terrific. That would be great for finding births. FreeBMD says you can only use death age date of birth with a death search. It is in fact a way of estimating how old the person was at death. So there's a temptation there to do lots of detail, but add more detail only if you see too many results the first time. And if you don't see any results, you can use the wildcard characters, the asterisk representing any number of letters, or a question mark representing a single letter. You can use them at the end or in the middle of a name, but you can't have a wildcard at the beginning. So we must be ready now. We've got our 4 questions answered. In the earlier slide I covered up the detail here with a big thing called search, when in fact there are 3 buttons there, 3 types of actions. We've already mentioned the reset. I've messed up. Go back to the beginning. Clean the whole page for me. The second one is really useful. I'm worried this search will produce a huge number of results. Will it? Count literally scans quickly through the data set and comes up with an estimate of how many results your search is likely to find. If it comes up with more than 2,000, I think it refuses to show them. If it comes up with less than 2,000, it's likely to recommend that you not proceed. Very handy, and I'll demonstrate that. And finally, I'm ready, do the search, hit find. And in fact, there's another button on here. Choose a file, which is essentially saying, I'd like to continue working on what I did yesterday. And at the end of the talk, we'll have a look at how we can use that. So, let's do some examples. While I've been locked away from the world, I've been trying to catch up on my Sotheby ancestors. I'm searching for births. You see I've ticked at the top. I've chosen a county, the East Riding of Yorkshire, because everything that I know about the Sotheby's, they're Yorkshiremen, in particular from the East Riding. So I've limited it to that. Notice in the top right, the districts have changed now. Not all the districts are shown, only those in the East Riding. So that in this case, by choosing the county first, I'm prevented from making a horrible mistake. I've specified March quarter of 1840 to December quarter of 1850 as my search period. I know that my great-great-great-grandfather Henry was born around that time, and he had a number of siblings. So I'm just searching for Sotheby's. There shouldn't be that many, I wouldn't think, but just in case, I'll click count, and up it comes by searching for births, Sotheby, March 1840 to December 1850 in the East Riding. 97 records match your query. It says I may display that if I want to look at them, I can press find and just have to put up with an extended delay while it gets it ready. But I think in this case it would be safer to revise my query. So we'll highlight that and we'll pop back in. I don't want to close down the time. I still want the full 10-year span. But I'm going to take a punt. The district of Houghton sounds familiar. I'm pretty sure they came from a little village of Goole in the East Riding, and I suspect it's not far from the town of Houghton. So I thought, let's have a lash at that. I'll limit it, so I'm now specified the county of East Riding and one district within it, so I can hit find. Oh, I didn't, I hit count. And it tells me 8 records. Well, that's good. I'll find those certainly. And there they are. Looks a little more realistic than the Euphemia one, because we've got quite a string there. Let's just magnify that up while we look at some of the features. The first thing is that it's divided up by the quarter and year in which it was registered. So births in June of 1845, then 1848, then 1849. If you're hoping that you're looking here at one family, then you think, that looks reasonable spacing, though those 2 births in the December quarter of 1849 are a bit of a worry. That suggests twins possibly, but more likely that we've got 2 families of Sotheby's in Houghton. The second feature is that the district office at which it was registered is also shown. In this case, that's not interesting because that was one of my search criteria. I'd be disappointed if anything other than Houghton showed up there, but in some of the later examples you'll see what use that can be. Thirdly, we see the volume of the register that holds the entry, all volume 23. So the district of Houghton, their entries every year go into volume 23, and finally the page within that volume. Interestingly, it looks like they were writing on page 69 of volume 23 in June of 1848. Then 18 months later, in December of 1849, they'd gone back to page 59. No, they hadn't. They've started a new book, but it's always known as volume 23 if it contains the registers for Houghton. So the full name of the book would be Births December 1849, volume 23. Other volumes, of course, would be created in other registry offices around the UK. Now you notice we've got 2 features there which are blue hyperlink text. Let's click on Houghton. It tells us some information about the district. The district Houghton is in the county of the East Riding of Yorkshire, which I knew. That's a bit disappointing. But it says I can find more by clicking here. And interestingly, it takes me to that other website that I mentioned at the beginning. Instead of both sites having the same information stored for use by family historians, they simply share links to the pages. And this tells me that Houghton is in East Riding of Yorkshire. It was created on the 1st of July 1837, that is when civil registration began. It was abolished on the 1st of April 1937 to become part of Houghtonshire and Holderness, so the district was broken up. When it was active, there were 5 sub-districts within it. And just to confuse it, of course, one of the sub-districts has the same name as the whole district. But here we see, in alphabetical order, all those entries. We've got some extra pieces of information there. It tells us, you see there's a little red stamp which gives us the information. Info. Let's click on that and see. And this lets us know that the entry for Jane Sotheby was viewed by 2 transcribers, JRT and Moonraker. And if I click on JRT's name, it tells me that her real name is Janet Taylor, and she has transcribed 1,558,752 records for FreeBMD. Thank you, Janet. Moonraker chose to be anonymous, so we can't find anything out about her. But a little further down the page, you see there's a pair of spectacles. It says scan available. And if we click there, we can see the page which Janet Taylor worked off. Let's blow it up. Now, this is not the register itself. This is an index to the register, which was made with a fountain pen in a big book that was then scanned to produce a digital image and then was transcribed by volunteers to produce the searchable index that we found. And we can see roughly in the middle of well, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, Sotheby, Jane, Houghton, XXIII, 2369. So that's what they worked off to produce this. I'm a bit concerned now that by closing down to Houghton, I may have missed some people. So what I'm going to do is to take a particular quarter, the quarter in which Jane Sotheby was born, June 1848, and I'm just going to search for Sotheby births, and I'm going to take a risk and say anywhere in the UK. And wow, there was only half a dozen of them, and you notice that 4 of those half dozen were in volume 23. Where are the others? Well, Sheffield is in the county of the West Riding, and Caistor is in the county of Lincolnshire. So Sotheby's don't move very far. And we notice a question mark against that bottom one, Thomas Sotheby. Up at the top it tells us there's a comment on this record. So let's go in and have a look at that. Why is there a comment? Well, it seems that Moonraker and JRT both transcribed this record and read different things. Moonraker said the entry is on page 340. JRT said page 80. Consequently, it was handed over to the FreeBMD CC, the corrections coordinator. And the corrections coordinator took a third look and said, sorry JRT, you may have done 1.5 million records, but in this case you're wrong. The correct entry is page 340. And similarly, there must have been a conflict with Sotheby, Anna, Eliza at the top. If we have a look, interestingly, the page that we looked at before is exactly this one, and you see that Thomas Sotheby on the bottom, it's definitely 340. Not quite sure how JRT got 80, unless she read the 8 from the line above. But anyway, the system is self-correcting. And so any time you get a red question mark, you can go in and confirm that the correct result has been produced. Now, I'm sort of feeling guilty that I didn't grab all 97 records when it was offered. It's not that big, and so I've run that search again, and I'm going to click Find, and it produces quite a long list there, and unfortunately I don't have time to process all of them today. So if we look up at the top, and we magnify it slightly there are 2 buttons which are rather important. One is called Save Search, and the other one is Download. I clicked both of them, and then went into my file list to find out what I had. So that one, Saved Search 2020-0606-1047.ss, that must be the Saved Search. I wonder what it looks like if I open it. Well, it looks like a load of computer gibberish when I open it. There's nothing in there that I can use, but just in case, I renamed it from that Saved Search, which didn't tell me too much. I called it B for Births, Sotheby, ERY, East Riding of Yorkshire, 1840-50, and then left it as .ss. So if I can find a use for that, I'll know what to do with it. And down the bottom we see save search file name, choose a file. So I chose B, Sotheby, ERY, etc. and clicked view saved, and it pulled it up again for me. FreeBMD had saved all my results. So all the time that I've been spending copying and pasting off the screen to produce that list, all I need to do is save the search. Or click save search, it drops a small file down, I rename it to something sensible, and we're in business. What's fascinating is that there's a button there called Find Additional, which is no use to me searching in the 1840s and 1850s, but if I had been searching in the 1980s and hadn't found anything, I can save my search, come back 6 months later, and instead of view saved, click Find Additional. FreeBMD will go away and check, has anything been added to the database since this search was saved that is relevant. So it's a really quick way of keeping track of any changes that might have been made to the database. A bit bigger, called search text. Open it up, and this is all the information that I would normally see on the screen, sorted nicely. The bugbear, of course, of the on-screen is that births March 1840 quarter is always mixed up with the others. In this version, it's shifted over into a separate column. And with not too much effort, I can turn it into something very nice like this in a spreadsheet and do all sorts of magical things with it. Right back at the start, I said this was important for dealing with marriages, and apart from mentioning euphemia, I haven't talked about marriages at all, so let's go back in and have a little look at that. Unfortunately, when I searched for euphemia, I didn't do a saved search, so I'm going to have to reconstruct this. So let's see. It was a marriage, that's at the top. I know it was in Newcastle upon Tyne, so I can select that. I'm pretty sure it was in December of 1837. I don't want to go outside the quarter, so I'll change those two. And her name was Euphemia Archibald. Yeah, that's it. Here we go. Sorry, we found no matches. Because I didn't follow my own rules, use as little information as is necessary. We found Euphemia without putting in a surname last time. Why take the risk of adding it in? So let's go back. Stick to Newcastle upon Tyne. Just Euphemia. Just in case I'm wrong about the date, but I don't think I am. I'll open it out for 6 months, 2 quarters of 1837, and that's it. She wasn't Euphemia Archibald at all. She was Euphemia Archbold. So, unless you're absolutely certain, don't put the information in. So, this is the information that we had before, and the good stuff when we were looking at births was when we looked at the page number. So, page 342, there we go. There are the marriages registered in the district of Newcastle upon Tyne in the December quarter of 1837. Euphemia Archbold at the top, but who did she get married to? Which one? Well, the answer is we don't know, and FreeBMD cannot tell you. All that we know is that 8 people were married in that district in that time, and they are listed in alphabetical order, not as couples. But we can make some intelligent guesses. 8 people married would, we hope, correspond to 4 couples, and up north in 1837 we're pretty sure they would have been heterosexual couples. So that means that I can knock out any of the women as a potential spouse. So I now know that Euphemia Archbold became Euphemia Fame, wife of Ralph, or Euphemia Harle, wife of Edward, Euphemia Wild, wife of William, or Euphemia Whitfield, wife of Richard. Now, there are various ways I could work on this. I could start looking at census data and births, but I'm sure that you saw, as I did, here, two of them are listed as Newcastle upon Tyne and the others as Newcastle on Tyne. I'll bet that means that she married Ralph Fane. This was written by the same person. They wrote it in the same distinctive way, and we could go in and have a look with that little glasses icon, compare the handwriting. Yeah, this is absolutely... Oh, it's not handwritten. It's typewritten, so we can't compare the handwriting. And where is Euphemia? Well, she's not there, because this is the F's page. Euphemia Archbold would be listed on the A's page. So we cannot infer that because they appear together or similar wording that they are in fact a couple. And in fact, when we check Ralph Fane, we see that his name wasn't entered, or his district wasn't entered as Newcastle upon Tyne at all. A very naughty transcriber has written in something they didn't see. So we don't want to start jumping to wild conclusions, because they are not valid. On the other hand, we can do some things here. And here I'm making a search for a marriage. The groom is Robert Sotheby. I'm pretty sure it's going to have happened in Houghton, but I'm leaving that open. And I'm searching for the March quarter of 1848 to the March quarter of 1851, and I'm asking for a spouse's first name, Elizabeth. It tells me that Robert Sotheby did indeed get married in Houghton in March of 1851, and on page 102 of the book we'll find all the others who got married, and there was Elizabeth Smith. Does this mean that Robert Sotheby married Elizabeth Smith? He might have, but FreeBMD is not saying that. All that this search is telling me is that Robert Sotheby's marriage was recorded on the same page of the register as a woman called Elizabeth. Robert could have married Margaret Good or Mary Ann Fell. Now, in this case, the reason that I searched for spouse's name as Elizabeth is that I was looking at the census, and there was a brand new Mrs. Sotheby appeared, and I thought, no, I got a fair bet that she's Robert's new wife, and she appears on the census as Elizabeth Sotheby. So this is supporting my view that Robert has married someone called Elizabeth, and if he did, it will be Elizabeth Smith, but I'll need a lot more evidence before I can be too confident. So let's recap. FreeBMD, vital records. England and Wales. You can't do Scotland and Ireland. You've got to pay for those. It's civil registration, so after July 1, 1837 only. Before July of 1837, you will need to look at parish registers. You must select an event type. There is no default setting. You must choose at least one of births, marriages and deaths. You can use multi-selections, including all, and you can ignore registration location. You don't have to choose a location. It will default to all. Some other restrictions. Births after 1911 can include the mother's surname. If you use a mother's name before 1911, it breaks the search. You get nothing. Date of birth is only useful in searching for deaths because it's a substitute for age at death, which does appear in some death registrations. If you're going to search for district and counties, select the county first, and then your second choice will be districts within that county. You can include the spouse's name in a marriage search, but it is not proof that they were married to each other.